This week on Women Who Rise, I'm joined by Ramona Locken, and this is one of the most personal conversations we've had on the show. We talk about grief, the loss of someone you love, and what it takes to keep going when life feels like it's been completely changed. Ramona now leads grief recovery courses, helping others find hope again. And in this episode, we talk about strength, healing, and how sometimes the hardest seasons become the ones that give your life additional meaning. If you've ever walked through loss, or you're in a season where life feels uncertain or difficult, this conversation is meant to help and to stay with you. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Women Who Rise. I'm your host, Heather Mansy. And today I'm honored to welcome Ramona Locken, a real estate leader, coach, and grief recovery guide who has spent more than 25 years helping people build lives of stability, purpose, and hope. Alongside her work in real estate and leadership, Ramona also leads grief recovery courses, helping individuals move forward after the loss of a loved one and find meaning again in seasons that feel impossible. In today's conversation, we talk about how loss can change the direction of your life, how strength is built in the hardest moments, and how sometimes the greatest purpose comes from the deepest pain. This is a powerful conversation about grief, growth, and what it truly means to rise and overcome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ramona.
Hi, thank you, Heather. I'm really excited to see you and to be here with you, and I'm going to share a little bit with the audience on grief and loss and what it means. So, thank you for having me.
You're so welcome, and thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about this. There are moments in life that completely change the direction that we thought we were on. Can you share your own experience of loss that has reshaped your life in the last 8 months and how it has affected the way that you and your immediate family sees the future?
Yeah, thank you. The time that we're recording this today, it is actually the 8th-month anniversary, and I'm going to get a little emotional. It's the 8-month anniversary of my oldest son, Jesse, who passed away from a workplace accident. It was unexpected. It was in July, beautiful sunny weather. We had just spent the 4th of July weekend at some dear friend's house down on the coast. Came back a couple days in work. I had spoke to him that morning and got news that there was an accident at work, rushed to the hospital and got the terrible news of what had happened. And so I'm not new to loss. Unfortunately, we are all touched with loss at some level, whether that be, we graduate high school and move on, we're losing friends, or we sell a home and move to another one, or, but my life personally, I've also been touched with loss. I lost my mother as a young teenage girl at the age of 13, my father when I was a baby, parents, 2 sisters and nephew. I always thought, I understand loss. I got lost. And over the course of years of having coach training had been by instructors and my mentors have said, well, have you ever thought about being a grief coach? And I thought, I don't want to be the fun girl at the party. Like, there's no way, that seems heavy. But here we are 8 months later, and it's definitely has shifted my and my family's life so much that it is really a gift that I get to move forward with helping others.
It is incredible. There's so much that, I feel just listening to what you just said. I had the great pleasure to know your son, and what a bright, light and just amazing young man he is and was. And, like I mentioned, when I saw you post about the 8 months earlier today, we are all made better for having had the chance to know him. I had the great joy of being like a co-coach for him in a program at another brokerage, and he just was so fun and
Yeah, yeah.
silly and amazing. And so many incredible things about him. And as a mother of two sons myself, who are now becoming young men, it is not something that I can really understand or comprehend. But what I do comprehend is that it is enormous. Before that season of grief, what did any sort of, grief mean to you? And how did the definition of that change in this past year? How did the understanding around it change that you decided to become a coach?
No, that's a great question because like I had shared, I'm not new to loss and grief. And when we think grief, we think the death of somebody that we love. But
Hmm.
grief and loss also surround a divorce, home, neighborhood, job. And so I've had loss in all of those areas and had always taken the approach of it's sad, but life goes on. You may shed a couple tears, but you can't stop. You just kind of you keep going. Pick your
Yeah.
bootstraps up and find the next best thing. What's your highest and best thing that you could be doing right now to keep moving forward and not drown out? I have other family members and we all know people who they get hit with a loss or something happens and they soothe it by drowning out the emotions. We drown
Yeah.
it out with things that seem positive, like working or exercising or keeping ourselves busy. We can drown it out and numb through alcohol or overeating or drug addiction. All those things help drown out. But I also knew from those previous experiences that as our heart is breaking, we also know intuitively that it's being broken open for growth because that is really where seeds go in and grow out and help us define who we are on a deeper level. And we all face it. Like statistically, it's not, like 20% of us or 40% of us. It's 100% of us are going to face
Yes.
some type of loss in our life. And
Yes.
so we as a community and as a subject, we're really kind of ill-equipped to learn what that, how to deal with that and what it is and what it means to grieve. And over the years, having had the coach training and having had deep level like psychology training and how the brain works and how emotions work and all of that impact us, I thought I had a really good understanding of that. And then after Jesse, I found myself connecting with some friends who had lost their son and saying, I'm so sorry. I did not get it. I didn't understand because that it just the biggest lesson I had is how we could feel such tremendous pain. Like it just overtakes. I felt like my heart and my heart cavity were in pain, like physical pain. And the
Yes.
brain, what it does to your brain, it impacts how your synapses and actually how your brain works. Things start shutting down. But yet at the same time, we all heard that, I think it's biblical and other things. It talks about joy in the morning, like
Yes.
AM in the morning, but there's actually joy in the morning, MOURNING. And that
Um,
comes, and that comes from keeping your heart open. And you do that through breath work and just really feeling the emotions that are deep right then and just so painful. But the only way out is through that. And you have to breathe. And like you found that quiet space on the beach where you were able to slow
yes.
down enough and really connect. And
Yes.
I fortunately, I feel like God put me in this place on that day. I ended up being in, for just a totally another reason. I was in a therapist chair that day. I was trying to just level up some other relationship work in my life. And I was in talking about that even. And that day, she gave me a tool that she said, you're going to go through tunnels in life and they'll feel dark. And you must breathe through those tunnels and look for ways to keep your heart open because that's how you see the next light that comes in that guides you to where you need to be. And so I saw her later. She said, you're not in a tunnel. This is completely not what she was talking about. But however, it
Yeah.
did help me to just breathe and deeply feel. And right away in the hospital, our family, we were putting our hands on each other and saying, whatever emotion you're feeling right now is the right emotion. And so we came together, tightly, support us. Still, we're supporting each other on these emotions where we get to claim and own our own emotions. We get to say like despair, I'm really angry today. I'm full of despair. I don't know how life is going to go on. Or anger, despair, sadness, sorrow, yearning to see the other one. These are all emotions that we all get to claim, but you never get to attack another person. You never get to physically latch out, or you don't get to say, you're making me feel this way. No, you can say, I feel really angry. I feel really sad today. And then we come together and support one another. And through that, I also learned that uh, uh, emotions is a feeling that comes through. It's kind of chemical based in our body. And our bodies or process emotion in about 90 seconds. And so when I'm with somebody, a song, a breeze, something will maybe trigger me. And they oftentimes will say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to remind you. I never forget. It's like the breeze around us. It's always there, but sometimes it just
Yeah.
bubbles out. And I tell them, if you just give me 90 seconds, it'll process. And then as we get an emotion, then our brain will come up with a story, and that could create a feeling that lasts much longer. And then after a feeling, that can create a whole mood that could last for days or weeks or months. And so right away, we got in, I reached out to my community, got us into a group therapy as a family. That gave us some really good tools. And so we just started right away just processing emotions.
And so you were able to see really, first of all, there's so much to unpack there that, I
Yeah.
just learned a ton. And I think it's incredible. I follow the work of David Kessler. And, it's kind of a goal that
Yes.
one day, I'll have him on. And I believe I gave you his book, very likely, at Jesse's Celebration of Life or sometime around there, because it is a book that I found was able to help me as I've gone through some parental losses in the previous few years. My mother is the one that has touched me the most, and it's it's something that I don't think you can ever really stop learning about grief, because as we evolve and as our understanding of our minds as evolve and as we evolve as a culture. But one of the questions I was going to ask you, and I think you answered this already to some extent, is are we safe to feel our emotions? Because like you mentioned, we drown them out. There, as a society, I think we have forgotten or lost the sort of cultural, and I'm talking about Western societies, the cultural ability to know that we can, as humans, naturally have and process emotions, and instead we kind of like tuck them away. We're not teaching our youth how to process emotions beyond maybe a certain age. And because of that, it's alcohol, or it's just like keep working and, put another goal in place. And what you just shared about the fact that your brain will process that in about 90 seconds, but we'll spend 10 years avoiding having it at all.
Yeah.
And we're the Prozac culture. And so can you talk a little bit about, as humans, are we safe to process these emotions, these heavy, hard emotions that we will do just about anything to avoid? And how can we process them?
Yeah, no, it's great because what you're talking about is culture, and and the culture impacts not only our families, the community that we're in, that church group, or other societal groups that we're in, all impacts I'm later tonight. I have a grief recovery class, and we talk about those myths of when you're feeling sad, or you've lost, like you lost a little girl, you lost your doll, maybe, or it's like, oh, it's okay, don't cry about it, or if you're going to cry, go to your room, or don't be
Yes.
so mad, or like we're just taught early on sometimes to not feel those emotions. And
Yes.
and then also we're in a
Boys
culture
don't
where
cry, men don't cry,
boys,
this kind of thing.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, just like don't get those on. And then we're also like this, if you see my phone, we're in this scrolling culture now to where
Mhm.
even commercials or ads or anything that comes out, movie clips, they're like 3 to 6 seconds, right? Of like do.
Yes.
And we have the memes that, that'll make us feel good and, happy are the joy, whatever memes come up. And it's like
Yeah.
quick, feed, go, right? But
Instant
here our
dopamine.
bodies, right? Yeah, yeah. And here, but yet we need a quiet moment. We need to slow down and breathe. And we need to deeply feel something. It's not easy. It hurts to feel some of these emotions. It's your cells. And as you're feeling them and as you allow it to go over, it literally is changing the cells of your body and changing who you are, just like breaking open dirt so that something else can grow out. And so it's counterintuitive to today's culture to slow down enough to feel the emotion that you need so that you can move forward. And it's going against the
Mhm.
trend of like, nobody wants to see you cry. Nobody who wants to share an ugly cry. But yet you have to howl and cry and it's not pretty. But at the same time, that's not pretty, but the joy and the laughter and the true peace that comes with that, like you need one for the other, I believe. And that's what gives us that whole umami flavor of life, right? We want the spicy and the
Yes.
sweet, right? We want the
Mhm.
savory and the fruity. We need all of that for a full life.
This is true. It has
So
us
I
really
yeah.
appreciate the benefits and the love that, the great things that we can have in life if you can have the contrast of it. We, like you say, we thrive in that contrast. I wanted you to finish your thought there.
Yeah, I think I had lost all what I was saying. It's thriving in the contrast. It's so I'm not I'm not one that where I feel like we have to look for sorrow or we have to kind of like create whipping posts first or anything. But we really truly have to feel all the emotions as they come up. And when you do, when you've trained your body in a way that you can feel the emotion, then you also train your body to feel the slight bit of emotion and knowing how it lives in your body because your body remembers. It keeps, there's a book, what the body keeps score, but our body knows. And oftentimes there's studies out there that show where we carry our emotional pain is where we have our physical pain. So, I know somebody who isn't always telling the truth and they literally have front teeth decay. I know somebody who yearns for love and is kind of sequesters it, but very closed off, and they have a lot of heart issues. Our back, a lot of our back pain is from suppressed emotions that we carry, and if you follow the back pain, it tells you what the emotional pain is that you're carrying. And so, if we
That's
can
wow.
actually feel their emotion, and that's a whole other story that or study that people can get into. But if we can actually feel our emotion, we're actually physically better equipped to manage the life that we're living. And that's what we all want to
Wow.
do,
That
right?
is
We want to,
exactly. I mean, I think that's incredible when as you're talking, I'm just realizing, it's emotion, like you say, I feel that it's coming for you in one way or another. And this is something that I remember hearing in the past that grief will come for you. And I noticed in my own life, it will simply show up and you can't plan for it. You can't expect it. You might be able to, like you say, give some space for it. And if you've had grief that's been trying to knock on your door and you haven't been letting it come, then perhaps giving yourself some space will allow it to come at that moment and allow you to feel it deeply, process it, and like you said, it's got to change you in order for you to move forward. And what you just said was extraordinary. Where if you're blocking it over and over and over, you will have very likely these physiological manifestations of what it looks like inside your body, because you're suppressing something, and at that cellular level, it exists. We're just not allowing it
Mhm.
to fully change you. You did mention even in the beginning how it is a chemical, process as well. We think of it as this, theoretical concept like called emotions, but this is actually a chemical thing too. Can you talk a little bit about, many people will feel stuck after losing someone they love. What helped you to move forward? I know and look, we're 8 months. There is
Yeah.
no right, wrong, upside down, backwards, forward, not forward. You know what I mean? That who knows where this process will be for you in the future. And I know this morning that you posted as the future is unresolvable in your mind right now, because he is not here. And so I'm imagining, and please tell me if I'm wrong, it's a little bit like, the addict who says, okay, I need to only take this one day at a time because the future is just too overwhelming. What has helped you move forward even through these days, when moving forward felt almost impossible?
Um, I love, yeah, the one day at a time. That's really all we have. You can set a goal. Our goals and stuff changed in one moment, and so did his wife and children, right? So we really only have one day. It's not that you don't have goalposts out there that you want to attain to, but the thing that helped us move is that I immediately knew that I needed my tribe of people. I needed people around me. So I reached out to every friend who's a therapist, coach, counselors, anybody. Like, who do
Yeah.
you know? Because he was my son, but he was a work colleague. He was a confidant. He was a friend. We spoke all the time. It was a big hit. And I thought I had this pact with God that, I lost my mother, my father, two sisters, a house, a divorce, like, okay, like I thought I had this nice pact with God that my children were
Yeah.
untouchable. And so
Yeah.
I had a choice, and I feel like I'm dying. You feel like you're dying. You can't breathe. And I just reached out and said, we're going to need help, because I knew that I didn't want to be in an angry place with God. Now, did I have a conversation
Yes.
with him? Oh yeah. But I didn't want to stay in that angry spot with God. That was not going to be okay. And I did not want, he was the older of six children. He was married. There's other in-laws, and he had children, and he was number 23 of I don't know how many cousins, the social circle. This kid made an impact out there. So, and I knew that other people were also going to need help. And yet at the moment, I just was looking for a place. How do I survive? And so people started connecting me, and I found a counselor who specialized in grief and could get my whole family in. The event happened on a Thursday. Friday morning, I'm on the phone. I asked him, he's like, well, it takes for intake. We could see you in a few weeks. And I said, there's no way. I won't survive. I won't be here in a couple of weeks. I'm dying right now. I need triage. It's what I felt like. Um,
Yeah.
and so
Yes.
then, yeah, so then he called, and he's like, well, good news. We can get you in next Friday. And he gave me a really good tool on the phone while I was talking to him. I said, okay, next Friday, 1 week. I think I can, okay. I just have one question. I said, what? And I was speaking really slowly, like, how do I survive between now and next Friday? I mean, I could barely talk. And he gave me the great tool. He just went, yeah, which caused me to mimic him. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I can breathe. I can breathe between now and next Friday. And he said, let me see what I can do. And I was like, that would be great. So right, I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, here's a tool. Breath work. Okay. Breath work. So he called a little bit later, and he said, good news. We can get you and your family in on Monday. And so that started our path on Monday. So here we are. We gathered right away over the weekend, that day, Friday through the weekend. Remember, this is July. This is sunny, warm days. We all get there together as a group, and already we're like, what is wrong with us? We are twisted people, because we're joking already, and we're teasing one another.
I love that.
And then we feel guilty and we're crying and we're like, we're psychopaths. But he was able to help us.
That's amazing. And it's funny how we are so human that regardless, even in grief, we, like you said, we're psychopaths. We're, making a joke that, that we can be laughing and crying almost simultaneously, that it's almost like it's, kind of overload at some point for the brain and just would not even know how to process. And, I've had friends that, have lost someone. I've lost someone. And, I have to say, I think at a certain point, even in my own mother's funeral, there was some giggling around, she would have hated that song or, and it's like, why? We don't understand it. And it is funny, this thing being human,
Yeah.
where we can't really make sense of it and we want to. And it's such a significant time. But I don't know that being human is meant to be where we make sense of everything. We want to, but we're not
No, yeah,
always
you're so
logical.
right. You're so
Emotion
right.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're so right. It doesn't make sense. And it's that duality of emotion that lives within us. And we sometimes we don't understand it. It just, there it is. And we have to be equipped to move forward with it. And
Yeah,
for
I
whatever
think it's
reason it comes up.
incredible. Exactly. And I think it's incredible that, in a way, we have some relief valve that after crying, we may end up laughing, or that, whatever that is, that we know our state at this moment is not ever permanent. And there is at least some small consolation in that, which is that this moment will be followed
Yeah.
by another moment, and that those moments will often be different from one another, and that there is at least a tiny bit of consolation in that. I have a best friend who years ago lost her son, and at some point in the night of, the first week, there was at some point when she hadn't slept and she couldn't stop crying. And it was also quite sudden. He developed an illness that absolutely took his life at 27. And I remember at some point, as a friend, knowing very little how to deal with this, but being a close friend, I said, I've got this. I will grieve him tonight for you. I will take over so that you can
Wow.
sleep.
Yeah.
Because I understood something about her in that moment, which was that she felt that she could not stop grieving him out of guilt, right? Like out of,
Yeah.
or even fear, that if I stop grieving, it means he's really gone. Or if I do not grieve as a mom, I'm not doing my job. And she literally could
Yeah.
not stop. And
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I said that, it became apparent to both of us that that was kind of the trap that she was in that moment, along with, yes, absolutely, a massive amount of grief. And she thanked me because she knew it was like I was keeping that candle lit overnight for her. And she knew I would do exactly that. And that allowed her to sleep, really, for the first time in like 3 days or something. And it was, again, that thing. She didn't really know how to get through it. But, I know that you now help others through grief recovery. And I wanted to know, what was the moment that this pain for you as well could become part of your purpose? And has it made it easier in any way, or has it helped in any way? Have you been able to, help others so far, or has even the process to get certified, which I believe you did as a grief coach, has that um helped you in this time?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. And what a beautiful story with you and your friend. I think I know the friend, but it's so true that grief, how the guilt is like a tricky monster that comes along, and
Yes.
the meaning of guilt means intent to cause harm. And so early on, the therapist that we saw, because we were all feeling guilty, we feel so guilty. And you feel guilty because you're here, they're not. You feel guilty because you laughed. You feel guilty because you ate. You feel guilty, you sleep. It's like consumes you. But he said that, and I looked it up, the meaning of guilt means intent to cause harm. And so by sleeping or eating or laughing or any of these, you don't intend to cause harm to your loved one. And so we let that rock go out of our backpack and we try not to carry that around with us. And we call, as a family, we'll call each other out. Like, that sounds like guilt. Is that, what place is that? And, we dig into it, like what's the bigger, and that's another thing that we do as a family is we try to make our emotion when we are mad, we try to make it really big, because if you breathe and get really sad or really mad or whatever, and you get it out, and then on the other side, it's like, whew, it's really peaceful. So how I personally made this step from here I am still fresh and still feeling my grief. And, people have said, oh, I hope you can get over it. Or, I don't feel like you're over it or whatever. And I was like, I hope I never get over my grief, because somehow that grief is attached to that deep love. And I'm always going to love them. I'm always going to have grief, or we're just moving through with it. It's again, duality. It's carrying, it's something that's around, we can do probably a whole nother podcast of what not to say. We don't know. People who are grieving, we don't know what to say either. So the best thing to say is, I don't know what to say. We don't either. Like, there is nothing to say besides, I'm here for you, and just holding space for another person and allowing them to feel whatever it is they're feeling is like the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
And so here we are, got us, we got into that counseling on Monday. We went back the next Monday. He gave us some really good tools. I got certified as a coach, probably 12 years ago with the national program. And I've had other training and counseling training and, all kinds of brain work studies I've done over the years. So I've had that in my past. And so here we are, it's like end of July, August, and we're standing outside as a family. And my kids, they said, Mom, and these are adult children. They said, Mom, he was good, but we got this as a family. And you've had training in this, right? You can help us. In my stupor, I was like, yeah, we can do this as a family. And so I had already read through the Grief Recovery Method handbook and other books and had seen the similarities, plus in previous coursework with leaders who have said, Ramona, with all the loss you've had, have you ever thought about being a grief coach? And I was like, no, I don't. Now here I am. I took that information and designed a program that, did we do it perfectly as a family? No, but every week, that's what started Monday. Every Monday night we get together, and up till the last couple of weeks, we usually always have a meal. We would have some type of question, journal prompt, checking in with how are you feeling in this moment? Because how are you feeling is like too big, but how are you feeling in this moment is much more easier to answer. Because I could be feeling right now happy, but 2 minutes from now, I might be really mad about something. And then I'm going to go back to being, somewhat calm. So how am I feeling right now? What's the biggest emotion that you've felt over the past week, and how are you handling it? What are some of the things that you're noticed? So we just check in with one another in our meetings. We feed our body, so we have a meal, discuss things. Sometimes we'll just do a journal prompt. A lot of times, like our favorite family night is where we use that as a launching off point for a craft project that we do. So we've done some, really like corny, meaningful crafts.
That's
Share favorite memories.
amazing.
It's like,
It is, because,
yeah,
and one of
share
the things I'll mention to the audience is just, and not to interrupt, but it's that you have a multi-generational family that you are, part of the center of. You're the mom to several children that are adults and have kids of their own. You have Jesse, your son's wife or widow, I'm sorry, and their children. This is a big crew, and just the fact that you guys there's so much I'm learning from this that you would, feed yourselves, as you say, feed your body. We don't think about that. And people grieving can become so overwhelmed. They do not. And this idea that you can do a cheesy craft together and that you can, and that you can acknowledge each other's emotions. I had to stop because that means, and I'm imagining you've got this whole multi-generational group, grandkids and
Yeah.
all hanging out and doing this together, because I think grief can be so isolating. It is by nature, right?
Yeah.
Almost isolating. And that is not helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. There's moments like there's moments where you need to be alone and process on your own. But then you also need the support of that community, which speaking of community, I that was another thing that we were just so very blessed with as a family is to see the community come together was like it was awe-inspiring. And so
Yeah.
watching this community come for support, Jesse's mother-in-law, Lisa, was at the front porch one day. Somebody dropped something else off, and she looks up at me and she's like, "Who are all these people that keep coming around?" And we said, "Well, it's our amazing community that we have." And so, to have that was such a blessing. And that also gave us wings or I should say wind underneath our wings to keep going, because
Yeah.
we WWJD our days now. So what would Jesse do? And
Oh,
within a short period of time, he helped plan his children's birthday parties that were coming up. So we honored his wish of that. Like, what would he do for this event that's coming up, or this holiday that we're facing? Or, it was, we did birthday parties, enchanted forest, wedding dress shopping, cause his brother's getting married. Like, we got together as a family and just moved forward. And it's the support of the community, the care of other people, the prayers. We feel prayers of people. And yeah, and so with that, helping that, and then the post I was putting up, I wanted to really capture the essence of who Jesse was and why we loved him. I didn't want it to be just about my pain. And that really spoke to a lot of people. So I started having a lot of people reach out and ask me, like, they'd share their story. This is what I'm going through. And I'd share back with what we were learning as a family that supported us. And it got us through,
yeah.
and it got them through. And so then, I joined a couple. I've been to some, mothers of loss groups and things, but
Mhm.
it hasn't been until like, just really kind of organizing it and helping. I mean, I'm a teacher. I'm like you. You're such a wonderful teacher, mentor, leader in our community. And I think you and I relate that way a lot with, I'd love to pour into people as you do.
Definitely.
And that helps take in what I'm learning, and that's helping me. And it pours into somebody else, and it comes back to us. It's like an analema that goes out and comes back in.
I love that. And it's just, I think you're such a wealth of knowledge, because I cannot imagine the loss. And yet at the same time, I can imagine so many of our listeners are going to be able to be comforted by so much of what you've shared today, even just the technical kind of aspects, the how to's of it all, the questions you guys were able to ask each other, the fact you've said, just breathe, the fact you said emotions can go through you and change. And the fact that, like you pointed out, I had just written a note, grief is that duality, that it shows us that deep love. And I think we all know and understand that. It's just, it feels like pain. But the fact that you're saying once
Mhm.
that goes, you also can receive then that feeling of happiness, or joy that is on directly on the other side of the missing, of that feeling of having missed that person. Is It's there because the love is there, and because the extraordinary joy is in the lived experience of that person, and what that they were able to give to us and in our lives, and also what we were able to give them. I really love what you just said about what would Jesse do, and bringing his, essence through all of your events. What you say, you live your lives with that now, that you consciously as a family are looking to bring him into your present. And I know that this was one of the concepts in David Kessler's book that I had mentioned, Finding Meaning, which was that, and he lost his son, and which is why he wrote the book. He had done early grief work and studies to write a previous book, the 6 stages of grief, but and co-wrote that. But why he wrote this one is because he did lose an adult son, and he realized that finding meaning is so much of what you described to us today, of being able to bring your loved one and all that they represent into the present, because they cannot be, but all of who they are lives in you, and you can bring them here because you are still here to bring them. And
Yeah.
I wanted to see what your thoughts were around that, and just how other people can find ways to do the same.
It's recognizing that not every relationship is the same, right?
Mhm.
I recently lost a brother, and which was sad, somebody I grew up with. Obviously different relationship, a different age bracket, but there's things like so often with Jesse, people would say to us, I hope you can remember just the good times. And literally with Jesse, they were all good times. So it's like, well, I'm going to remember his whole life. With my brother, was a little bit different, but there are things and pieces we can take out of to remember him and move him forward. Same with my mother, my grandmother, and my, other people in my life who have passed away, is that there's pieces of them that you can, like what you focus on expands. So if you can extrapolate out of those relationships, pieces of them that were the essence of why you loved them, and kind of let go. I mean, you still have to, I think a person still has to process whatever emotion you had, maybe they didn't, but that does truly help them. The love never ends, right? Love doesn't die. No matter what
Yeah.
what religion you follow, like we can all agree, love doesn't die. That love and that energy goes on. And so how do you move that forward, and how do you keep the love going? Because, they're in love. They've gone to a place that, like, they're not in pain. They recognize that we are. But
Mhm.
that's been another thing. The spiritual side of things is another thing that our family is still moving through and growing, and, and figuring out, and, for the sake of, not getting into, any kind of thing with readers, but you have to really like dive into that love, because that love is energy. They're in love, and there are signs that God and that our loved ones give us if we live in a guided, illuminated life that's out there, and those messages and the things that they taught us while they were here, and just take that forward, because it means so
Mm.
much to us as people who are still here, and to them for the life that they lived. And, we're all just trying to do our best.
Yes.
There's many reasons why people are not with us anymore. Some of them are accidents, some of them are other means, why a person's life has ended. But at the end of the day, most people, they're just striving to do the best they can. And so if we can just
Yes.
see that best in what they were trying to do and move that forward, then it just helps everybody. So that's what a lot of the conversation that I have with people is looking through that the relationship that they had with somebody, and both the pros and the cons,
Yes.
continuing that conversation with, whether it be through journaling, writing a letter. You can write a letter, even if a person's still alive, you can write a letter to them. You don't have to send it. Just if the person has passed on, you can't send it to them or give it to them, but it helps you move that through and out, and you have that conversation that you can have. And then you can say a prayer. There's a Hawaiian prayer, and I always mess up the name of it, but it's a Hona Oko Ono prayer. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you for what you've done, and I love you. And you don't have to do any one or hono okopono. You can cut that out of that thing. But it's the Hawaiian prayer of forgiveness. And so it's, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you in any order. And that really, even with grief recovery, you can do that with people and write off situations and, journal on those 4 points. And it really helps you process through all those feelings, right? You've had an emotion, now you've had this ongoing feeling, and it processes that out so that you can get to a place where you can just get to the love, because that's really what it's all about, right? We just want to get to the love.
This is so true. Well, Ramona, I mean, you've left us with so much wisdom and so many, thoughts, your grace, in, allowing yourself to be here with me today, so that our listeners who may be alone in this process, maybe don't have a therapist, maybe don't have someone to help them go through it, is enormous. And I thank you so much for your willingness to come and talk about
Mm.
this. My heart, as you know, has been with you all these months, and I cannot understand. And yet, I want to be of help. I want to be of value. And the fact that in your greatest sorrow and grief as a mom, that you also, would want to be of help, be of value, and find meaning in carrying his life into the present, not just by all the things and the silly crafts and the feelings and the processing and the memories that your family is doing, but also by genuinely, through your grief therapist work, to help others. I think it just says so much about you, and I really value you as a person, and I know that our audience has really been contributed to by your willingness to share with us today. Um, I will provide links for everyone so that if you are searching for someone to help you in this process, that you are struggling with, grief of any kind, like Ramona said earlier, grief comes in many different forms. And so it could be many kinds of losses and not just the loss of an individual. That we will make sure that you guys can, find a way to have a way to reach out to Ramona, so that, and we'll post the books that were mentioned today as well. But Ramona, I just want to thank you again. Are there any parting thoughts for our audience, that you'd like to share, maybe to someone who is grieving now?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I think yeah, there's so much to unpack, right? It's grief. Um I As we were talking and as you were recapping, it reminds me that as a family, when we get together, we recognize the loss that we have of somebody that we all love so dearly, but that also we are all our own people. And, he's got brothers with their own goals and personalities. And we right away kind of made this pact that we didn't want any one of us to be so swallowed by the the brightness of his life that's been lost here on this planet, that we carry that alongside us and not over us, or so it's overtaking who we are. And I want to say that that's probably the biggest thing in the work that I've done now focused around grief, is like there's moving through the grief process, but then there's also meeting the person of who you are now post that loss and post recovery, of now who are you, what are your goals, what's important to you. Grief and profound loss can strip away the ego, and strip away what we thought was important is no longer important. And so there's these secondary
Yeah,
losses that come with a major loss of identity, and loss of direction, and loss of self, and it can go on. And so it's just even a matter of helping a person, or just even them doing their own work of now rediscovering who they are and what is important, and creating those new goals so that you can rise and be the person that you're meant to be. So
that is
that's,
perfect. And it
yeah,
makes,
love
yeah,
to have
so
some
much sense.
conversations and be in other rooms.
Exactly. And yeah, I think that's incredible and something, again, some wisdom that they can carry away, that our audience can carry with them. So again, I just want to thank you so much for being here with me today and for
Oh,
being willing to share about Jesse. And I absolutely value
yeah.
who he was and is and continues to be in all of our lives.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. It was a pleasure. Like you have created a space for women and people. I know how you are with people. You're just so loving and caring and forward thinking. So thank you. It's been an honor to be here with you.
Thank you, Ramona. Thank you so much. Well, folks, that's it for today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on Women Who Rise, the success podcast for ambitious women. Today, Ramona taught us through her own experience with profound loss that there is indeed joy even in the mourning itself, that the process of going through grief does itself also reveal on the other side access to emotions of joy and gratitude and peace and love. And that because of the grief, the stronger feeling of grief, the love is even stronger that is binding those things together. So being able to get through those emotions will give you, in fact, tremendous joy as well in that loss. The second thing is that the only way out is through. Ramona shared as both a grieving mom and a grief counselor that by processing these emotions, by allowing them to occur, by going through the process of having grief, of being a participant in life and loss, that the way to get to the other side of every day is to be able to go through that day. And you cannot escape grief. It does exist. And she talked about the necessity to give it space and that there are ways that you can deal with that, and understanding that therapy and grief therapists specialize in the ability to help you go through this process, and you do not have to go through it alone. The third thing was to claim your emotions. She talked about her family, naming it, to say, what emotion are you feeling in this moment? Not all week or in the future or forever, but what are you feeling in this moment right now? I have the emotion of, say, sorrow or yearning or confusion or longing or whatever it is, to claim what those emotions are, to be able to vocalize them, to be able to describe them and name them and state what it is you are feeling and be heard. So that is one of the big things that their family does. Every week they gather and they communicate about their feelings, they claim them, they are able to discuss them. And this helps them to be able to then channel those emotions into communication with one another, to be able to feel and be heard. And then also, yes, they have crafts and they cook and they eat and they do other things that can allow them to feel these things together. Her family is multi-generational. And so she lost a son, her stepdaughter lost a wife, daughter-in-law lost a husband, and her grandchildren have lost their father. And so this process is felt so differently in different people. So being able to claim the emotion, name the emotion, be able to communicate and be collective in sharing this grief, although it's so individual and so different for each person, it is something that collectively they can share, and they can share that burden together, as well as the joy. And then the fourth thing, she talked about many things, but the fourth thing I wanted to share was giving space and breathing. Give space for your grief and breathe. She talked about the endless scrolling, the dopamine hits, the whole thing. It's not allowing you to process grief, and that running from it and distracting and, going to substances or whatever it is, that is not the process of grieving. And although it is a part of the coping mechanism, it is not itself allowing grief to pass. And like she said, the only way out is through. So she talked about simply giving space, go outside, go for a walk, give yourself a little bit of quiet time, perhaps, and breathe. And just remember you can breathe and that this will help. So there's so much more. And I really hope that you watch and rewatch this episode. Like Ramona shared, we are all going to deal with grief multiple times in our life. It is the one thing that 100% of us all are going to feel or deal with at some point. And so, although culturally or societally, we may not be training people how to do this exactly, people like Ramona will and can. She is a grief coach and therapist, and she can help someone go through this. So my hope is that this episode helps someone. And there is an episode guide and a worksheet. Please make sure to take a look at that. There is a link for that on our website, womenwhorisesuccesspodcast.com. And we want you guys to be able to use these thought-provoking questions and formulate your own thoughts and your own input on these episodes that will help you to be able to put that information to good use. Thank you again for joining us today. Please like and subscribe and join us everywhere that podcasts are streamed. We can't wait to bring you more incredible content every week so that you can rise in your own lives and careers. And again, thank you so much. Heather Mansy, signing off.